Hey, welcome to episode 251 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast called Anxious Youth. Speaking of anxiety, I'm a little anxious right now thinking about interviewing my guest today. And in this world, we often still don't say that to each other, right? We often don't say when we're anxious. So for a lot of people, a lot of the time, anxiety can become a very hidden thing, and when we hide something and have to enforce ourselves to deal with it all alone, it can become more and more intense. I speak as a veteran of dealing with anxiety. Luckily, things in the last 10 years or 15 years have been drastically better as I found yoga and meditation and stuff. But my anxiety in its prime before that was like far more, I found it far more disruptive and sometimes disabling than my speech impediment and coordination differences ever were. So I'm excited to have this important conversation today and excited to bring on my guest. I'll tell you more about him, but first, this.
Today's guest, Joel Bailey.
Hey, welcome back to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Our guest this week is the superintendent of the Platte-Geddes School District in South Central South Dakota. When I asked him to be on the show, he said he wanted to talk a lot about kids having to deal with anxiety, and I like what because he's a superintendent of a fairly small place. I mean, Platte has 1,300 people, and Geddes has 156. But in talking to him, it sounds like kids in these really small places even deal sometimes with intense anxiety, and so I'm very excited to have him on to talk about this battle many of our kids are dealing with on a daily basis, and what we can do as adults to help them deal with it. With that, please help me welcome Joel Bailey to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Yay!
Good afternoon, Jason.
Thanks for being here, Joel.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So first, I would kind of like to get a sense of the problem as you're seeing it. Like, for starters, do kids in grade school, like in the early grades, do they deal with anxiety? And if so, how does it manifest?
Well, I think they do. I think maybe they display that anxiety in outlandish behaviors, acting up and whatnot, because at that age, they're just not quite sure how to deal with it. And they can't necessarily express it verbally because their just mind is not developed to understand what they're experiencing. So we see it in the form of misbehaviors often. But I do think that it is present in and becoming more present in students younger and younger. Why that is exactly, full disclosure, I am not an expert when it comes to anxiety in children. And really today, I'm only speaking from kind of my experiences as the Platte-Geddes superintendent, as a former elementary principal, former elementary teacher, a teacher in the middle school. But yes, back to your question, I do think that our kids are starting to experience this anxiety younger and younger, and it's probably really based on a myriad of factors. We could get into diet, Red 40, for example, what they're watching at home, on YouTube, what they're exposed to. There's a lot of things out there that could really drive that, and to put your finger on exactly what causes that in each kid would be tough, but I would say that access to the internet plays a large factor in that. Also, things that maybe we don't know about, outside factors happening in the home, could have a profound impact on students and the anxiety that they carry in what we call their invisible backpack when they walk into the school.
The invisible backpack.
Yeah. So yeah, it is very present, and I think is going to continue to expand, which is scary. And it's our job as school leaders, as adults, as parents, as positive role models to really help these kids recognize that, find positive coping mechanisms, ways to express it and deal with it in a positive manner.
How about when kids get a little older, from 4th through, like, say, 6th grade, how do you see them?
I think it's similar. It a lot of times comes out in their behaviors, and I've just finished the book, The Teenage Brain, and it just talks so much about the development and the outside factors that could, our brain, our prefrontal cortex continues to develop till we're 25 years old. And the social media, the lack of sleep, even diet, all of those things play a big factor in our brain development. And there are a lot of things that are inhibiting positive brain growth and development. Again, I'm going to go back to cell phones and social media most commonly. But the behaviors that we see are, again, typically the same. It may be more so, if it's not a ill behavior, it may be quiet, withdrawn, maybe not connecting with the number of friends that we would like to see. So certainly there, and it's maybe sometimes not easily recognizable, and other times it may just be slapping us in the face.
You mentioned diet twice. How does diet play a role in anxiety?
Well, I think, again, not an expert. These are only my opinions. So if somebody comes on and starts fact checking us and they want to tell me I'm completely wrong, that is okay. But I think that you see kids drinking Red Bull at a younger age, the candy intake, the unhealthy food. Most of that stuff is if a student is a neurodivergent learner, or maybe they struggle with ADHD, the high copious amounts of caffeine and the Red 40, they only exacerbate the inattentiveness. And so that's that's where I see it could have compounding effects on maybe some of the other underlying issues.
This is tough for adults kind of to grasp in a way, because you mentioned Red Bull, and that wasn't around when I was a kid, and then we've talked before about social media. How is social media making life more intense for kids?
Oh, it is the absolute, again, in my opinion, the driver of anxiety in teenagers, in college age students. They say that comparison is the thief of joy. And when we think about, and I'm going to steal from Jonathan Haidt's book, Anxious Generation, the research shows there has been the levels of depression and anxiety since about 2010 or 2012, once a smartphone was created with a front-facing cell phone, where kids, adults, anybody really could start taking selfies, and then filtering them and then posting them on social media, which would allow anybody to comment. Typically, a lot of those comments are extremely negative in nature. You've just seen, especially in girls, the level of anxiety and depression just spike, and that continues. They see all of these pictures and what a middle school or teenage high school girl, I don't think they think about the end product, but I don't think they realize that the level of filtration that's on those pictures. And what they're really seeing is they're seeing the end result of something that has been altered. What they're not realizing is the real human or the person that's behind the camera. And just that ability to constantly compare themselves to others that they see is it has a detrimental effect, and it's going to continue. Body dysmorphia, specifically in girls, I think that's just growing insurmountably because of that constant comparison to what's out there. The influencers that you see on social media, all of those things are ultimately, not all, most are altered in some way or another. And they're putting out most of the time a final product that's maybe edited and whatnot. And girls are wondering why their pictures don't look like that, or they're posting a picture using a filter, and then they look in the mirror and it doesn't look the same. And that honestly increases their anxiety. And so many things. Boys are the same way, not as high of levels of anxiety and whatnot, but due to the social media, but they do have a impact on boys as well. And you and I, once this goes live, we're a target for anybody who wants to comment on whatever we say, how we look, whatever. And unfortunately, the world we live in now is mean and judgmental. And somebody who's not comfortable in their own skin, hearing negative comments and about their appearance or whatever it may be, that is going to increase their anxiety and possibly even lead to depression.
Full disclosure, for those of you watching, there's no filters being used at the present moment.
Yeah. Yes. No filter here.
Well, Superintendent Joel, what does the term body dysmorphia? Say that word again, please.
Yeah, body dysmorphia. The way that you're seeing your body, we're our own worst critics 99% of the time. So the way you're viewing your body is ultimately not how other people see it or perceive it. Like, and so they have this negative thoughts about how their body looks, but in reality, how people actually see them is in way more of a positive manner or positive light. And they just have that continual belief that they're overweight or they're ugly or whatever it may be. And, again, that leads to that anxiety and the depression, and again, social media and the ability to comment on things. And a lot of times hide behind a keyboard and not identify who you actually are. I think some people take great value in entertainment in that. For some unknown reason, that they get great pleasure out of bringing others down. And yeah, it's just all leading to horrible results for the person posting the pictures.
I know I suffered for decades, Joel. Thinking that people hated the sound of my voice. Well, I come to find out that there was basically one person in the world who hated the sound of my voice, and that was me. And so I can, yeah, we are our own worst critics.
Yeah, and kids will, again, I don't know that they often understand that about themselves. There's ways we can try and combat that. From a school leadership perspective, sharing positive messages. I'm just going to segue or maybe digress, if you will, onto a message I share with our kids. I try and begin the school year with a positive message every year. And one piece of that message every single year is that every single student that walks through this door and every person that works here has value. And you know what? Whether you're a 4.0 student or not the best student, whether you are the best athlete on the playing field or the court, whether you are one of our fantastic custodians, whether you like to drive race cars, whatever it is, every single one of you have value and you belong here. And my value may look different than Jason Freeman's. Maybe you're just a person, a character of kindness that treats everybody the same. That is your value, and we want to celebrate each and every one of those. And we want to make sure that value, we recognize that. We want the kids to know that we see their value, and we want to help them see it as well.
That's beautiful and powerful. You said as part of your message, you get vulnerable with your students about your own dealings with anxiety and depression.
Absolutely.
What response do you notice from your students when you do become vulnerable?
Shock and awe. Sometimes they're not really sure. They're not really sure how to respond, honestly. But yeah, I have taken a page out of Brene Brown's TED Talk on vulnerability, and I too struggle with anxiety and some depression. And the best way to break that stigma, especially for young kids and our students, is to let them know that you're not the only one feeling this way. And I told the kids, I just turned 45. I said, I'm still not sure what I want to do when I grow up. So I'm still working on that. You have to understand that I may look like on the surface, I have it all together. But a lot of the times wearing a suit coat and dressing professionally nicely, that's a facade to cover up my own insecurities. And I'm feeling this way, so I want you to know that it's okay for you to feel this way. Somebody that I hope they look up to and respect. I also want them to know that I am human. I tell them I'm probably the most imperfect person in that gymnasium at the time. I make the most mistakes, and that's okay, because that's what we all have in common. We're going to make mistakes. We have imperfections, and you just have to learn to accept those as part of who you are, and those as part of what makes you awesome, what makes you who you are. So,
speaking of making mistakes, do students still stress out about academics and getting the 4.0 and all of that?
yes. Yeah. So I just had a conversation with a parent this morning, and him and I are both in agreement that it is insanely hard to be a kid right now.
Insanely hard.
Yeah. And
and you're not in a big city. You're not telling me this in a major city. You're in.
Yeah. We have 530 students in our district. As you mentioned in the intro, our town is 1,300 people, in Platte roughly. Geddes is 200 or so. And the same stresses, the same anxieties that kids in Sioux Falls or Los Angeles School District are feeling, they're very much relevant and present right here in Platte-Geddes. There's those kids who academics have come very easily for them. And then they maybe get into some dual credit courses or some upper level courses where academics has never been a struggle. And maybe they got their first A- or a B, and they have that perfectionist attitude. And that causes an immense amount of stress and anxiety for them because they've never known anything but being ultimately perfect in their schoolwork. And that is something that they'll continue to strive for. But again, making them understand that there are going to be times where you're not going to get 100% on every test, every assignment. We want you to absolutely strive for that, but it's okay. It's okay if you don't. The sun is going to come up tomorrow. You're still going to be an amazing student, amazing human being. And we'll do better on the next one, or we'll try and figure out where the misunderstanding was with that particular lesson or that content area, and we'll help you get there. And just really try and help ease their tension and let them know that you can't be perfect all the time. Nobody can.
If a parent someone who's friends with a kid is listening, and okay, that question is going all over the place. So I'll just stick with the parent. If a parent is listening who has a kid or multiple kids who are struggling with perfectionism, what ideas would you give to that parent to help that, to support that kids?
So, I mean, I think a lot of times perfectionist students maybe come from perfectionist parents who are really holding them to a high standard. And I think it's just sometimes, and even as a father, I have a son that's a sophomore in college and one that's as a senior in high school. We hold these kids to high standards. And I think sometimes we need to take a step back and look and remember what we were like at that age. And we certainly didn't probably ace every test. We certainly made mistakes, and just being there for the kids, supporting them and explaining that, you know what, whether you got a 98 or a 74, if you put your best into this particular assignment, test, whatever it may be, you know what, I'm proud of you. At the end of the day, I love you. It's not going to change the way I feel about you. And everything that we do, every failure is a learning experience. So even coming from a parent, I've made a lot of mistakes as a dad. and just learning from those mistakes and just working alongside that kid and saying, I'm going to support you. We'll do better next time. We don't expect you to be perfect. And I think as a parent, if you're expecting perfection from your kid, maybe take a second to reflect on your thinking. And is this pressure I'm putting on my child, is that actually benefiting them? Is that supporting them? Is that really encouraging them? Or is that working inversely? Is that working against them and adding additional pressures? As I said, it's not just the academics that kids are under immense amounts of pressure. It's all those other factors that, like you and I didn't grow up with. Like you said, we didn't have the cell phones. We didn't have social media. There are so many other things that can have a large effect on our kids these days that we just have to be mindful of those things. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
this is a similar question, and it might be too similar, but I still want to ask it. What's the difference between challenging and inspiring our kids to move their efforts towards excellence and demanding they become perfection, in demanding they do things perfectly?
Again, not an expert, but in my opinion, it's in the delivery of how you talk to your children and how you communicate those expectations. And then it's in the response after the end result list came in. How you respond to them can be really good or it can be really bad. So I guess always trying to maintain that positivity. And I'm not trying to sound like an idealist and everything is sunshine and rainbows, but I think it's really in the delivery of how you communicate those expectations, and then how you elicit your response after the end product.
What tips do you have on delivery?
Always, again, common sense. You're going to encourage them to do their best. That's, at the end of the day, I don't know what else we can ask for them. And then as a parent, if I see my child's test score or efforts on the playing field or whatever it might be, like, I pretty much know whether if they put their whole heart into it, or if, maybe it was a lackluster effort on their part. And taking that into mind, I think you can absolutely be a little hard on your kid, and you can push them, but also you can do it in a manner that ultimately you're not ridiculing them, you're not getting negative, you're not degrading or berating them. You can do it in a positive manner and build them up, and still make sure that you're supportive, like firm but fair, maybe, if that makes sense. Just again, whatever you're saying, conveying it with love and compassion, and trying to build them up that way, whether it's in the delivery or the response after the end product. It's the how you're saying it. And I think oftentimes that's why, again, speaking from my own experience as a parent, I could tell my children to do something over and over again, and somebody else may ask them to do the exact same thing, and they'll do it with enthusiasm. So sometimes it's maybe not even the message that's coming from me, and maybe it's the same message, but it just came from somebody else in a different manner. And that's okay. What I cared about was the final product. If they got better, if they improved, that's what matters. And oftentimes at schools, we hear these things, like at parent-teacher conferences, the teacher will, communicate that the child is very well behaved and, a good listener. And the parents often say, well, that's not the case at home. Well, that's okay. Like you probably didn't behave at home either. I didn't either. We didn't follow the rules quite the same, but be proud of your child for what they're doing here. And sometimes it's just the person sharing the message. And if it's not, if a parent is struggling to get through to their child, you know what, there's, I hope, one thing, if I had one wish, it would be that every kid had a positive role model in their lives that maybe wasn't mom or dad. Obviously I want them, but somebody else. So maybe lean on somebody else, a grandparent, grandpa and grandma have a lot of wisdom to pass down to children, and maybe lean on them, or a respected coach or teacher or school counselor. Because sometimes kids feel like mom and dad are just always on their behinds about everything. So working with school personnel or somebody from your church, possibly. So just some ideas, again, from my own perspective.
Then what are some ideas about what parents can do when a kid does perform lackluster? You can tell their heart isn't in the thing, that kind of going through the motions. Maybe they're bored, maybe they're having a bad day, but you can tell that they just didn't perform to their abilities. Like, how do you encourage how do you be with a young person when that happens?
Well, I think honesty is the best policy, obviously. So, I mean, maybe express that what I saw out there, and I don't think, or what I seen in the classroom, I don't think I was the only one that saw it. And at the end of the day, you are responsible for you, and, strive to be your best self all the time. Anything worth doing is worth doing well. So just trying to continue to remind them of that. And that's a really good message for life, that we're all going to have tasks that seem mundane and whatnot, but we have to do them. So anything worth doing is doing well. I had some advice from a guy named Tom Cody. He was a print presenter for a program we did here at school called the Top 20 program. And he related it to, he had to go to his wife's family reunion, and he was bitter about it. And the first year he was just sat in the chair and pouted the whole time. And then when they got home, she let him hear about it, as any good wife would. And he just said, he decided, if you can't get out of something, get into it.
If you can't get out of something.
If you can't get out of it, get into it. So the next year, he said he was the purveyor of fun at the family reunion. So I think that's a good message for everybody, is if you can't get out of it, get into it. Maybe you don't want to clean the toilet, but hey, you might as well make the most of it. Turn on some music, whatever you need to just to get through it. But again, back to the anything worth doing is worth doing well. So keeping that in mind also.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about kids in high school sports. It seems like that can be such a source of anxiety. And what are your ideas on that?
Again, going back to my mistakes I made from a parent, coaching my kids through like youth sports and whatnot. My best advice, and this was advice that was shared with me, was after every single game, you'd say a couple things. You'd say, I love you. I'm proud of you. I love to watch you play. And where do you want to eat? That's simple.
I love you. I'm proud of you. I love to watch you play. And where do you want to eat?
Yeah. Yep. Because if a kid didn't have his best performance, guess what? He has a coach that's probably going to go ahead and share that feedback with them. He or she is probably very well aware of that. They didn't have it all that night, and they don't need to hear it from us. We are their support. We are their champion, and there's nothing more frustrating and saddening to sit in the stands and watching your kid not perform their best. It's heartbreaking. It really is. And at the end of the day, why compound that when the child knows that they didn't have their best that day? Why bring our input into it? We've already, as adults, had our moment in the sun as athletes in middle school and high school, maybe even college. Let the kids enjoy their experience, trust the coaches, and just be there to support them. That's my opinion. And there is an abundance of pressure on our kids, and you see it, I mean, with kids specializing in one sport and playing it year round. I've traveled to summer basketball leagues, and I've seen the way that some of these parents treat the sport. They treat the coaches, they treat their child. It's doing no good. It's doing no good. Now, if they go there and their kid loves the sport and they're totally invested and this is what they want to do and they love it, fantastic. Then again, you have a responsibility at the end of the game to say, I love you. I'm proud of you. I love watching you play. Where should we eat? That's all it takes.
As a professional as well as a parent, it seems like I don't have any kids, but it seems like it would be so easy for a parent to get into the mindset of my kids not doing the right thing, whatever that looks like, and that reflects back on me, and then now I look bad. How do parents first acknowledge that they're feeling that way, and then how does a parent deal with that without pressuring the kid to be exactly the same as they expect them to be?
It's really hard. It's really hard.
I'm not asking you easy questions.
Yeah. I will tell you that I have my significant other, God bless her, will often remind me that maybe my facial expressions and gestures during games while my children are playing, maybe, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So I need to also monitor my own reactions from the stands and whatnot, because like I told you, Jason, I am certainly not perfect or an expert at any of this. I'm continuing to learn as I grow as a parent and through my mistakes. So it is hard. And I think you have to enjoy the experience because it goes so quickly. It's crazy to think that my youngest son will be graduating in May, and I will, as many basketball, volleyball, school events that I attend, never again will I be able to walk into the Platte-Geddes gymnasium and watch my child compete. So I hopefully maintain that perspective of we only get this amount of time. It's their experience. Let's just enjoy it. As painful as it might be sometime, if they're not on their A game, you just have to enjoy that opportunity that we get to watch them play. And that time will come and go so quickly that you may reflect back and be very disappointed in yourself that you reacted the way you did. And I guess I don't want to feel that way. I don't want parents to feel that way. I don't want anybody to feel that way, because it's a short time frame. I'm digressing, but I read a thing that said by the time our children are in the third grade, we will have spent, I want to say it's like 80% of that time as a parent-child interaction together. And by the time they, I think, graduate, don't quote me on these numbers, it's kind of I think you'll get the premise. By the time they're 18, we have spent 95% of our time in our lives with our children that we will in a lifetime.
Oh.
So if you put that into perspective and you think about that and maintaining that positive, healthy relationship with your children, man, that's, and you think about a lifetime, the kids are going off to college and then they're, starting their own lives as young adults and getting married and starting their own families. That window is so small. Maintain that perspective of how important that positive, supportive relationship is with them, and be that ray of hope, that support team, that person that's helping them succeed, not increasing the level of anxiety and things that they're dealing with.
Powerful words. Thank you. Thank you. Switching gears a little bit, I'm fascinated, like I mentioned at the beginning, often stress and anxiety are invisible to the outside world. And sometimes our preconceptions may get more invisible. Like, for example, you grew up on a ranch in the middle of the country. Basically, I mean, from where I said that sounds kind of like an idyllic life, and there wouldn't be much stress or anxiety. But was there stress and anxiety sometimes?
Oh, yes. For anybody who has ever worked cattle in their lives, the level of stress is pretty high. Okay, I'll take that back. On the Bailey Ranch in Bonesville, South Dakota, rounding up the cattle was stressful. Getting the cows and calves into the corral, that was one level of stress, and then getting them sorted out so you could work the cows and the calves separately, and then getting through the entire process. That was a very anxious time. And speaking of, I was one of those kids who maybe would rather have gotten out of it than gotten into it. So I maybe wasn't the most motivated, or maybe not like in the right place at the right time. So I had a leather behind from so many butt chewings while we were working cattle. And we laugh. There's a shirt that says, "Sorry for what I said when we were working cattle." And I know that it applies to other things too, but yeah, it was very anxious. And maybe looking back, nothing against my dad and grandpa, but maybe they could have taken some lessons from what we're talking about today about maintaining that positive mindset and delivering messages in a little different way. But yeah, it was anxious, and it really, I don't want this to sound like therapy, but it really made me fear failure, or, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or just, I was afraid to mess up. Like I was just going, like, kind of the mindset that, well, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to get my behind chewed anyway. So yeah, it was crazy, but also some great memories. Obviously a great bonding time while the family was there and stuff. But yeah, that led to maybe some of my anxiety that I still still deal with today. And Jason, I got to tell you that probably in our pre-conversation we were discussing like when I really started to experience anxiety or recognize it. And I say this maybe a little tongue in cheek, but I think my anxiety really started to spike when I became a driver's ed teacher. So that will kick in anybody's anxiety when you're sitting in a car with a inexperienced 14-year-old and you only have a brake on your side that you hope works but you never have to use it.
So in both cases with the cattle and the calves and with the student drivers, you're dealing with a level of uncertainty. Just you can't predict what cows are going to do all the time, and you can't predict what student drivers are going to do. And the uncertainty can be really anxiety inducing.
Absolutely. And I think if we all could think about why are we letting things outside of our control drive our anxiety? If we could all recognize that, man, what a more pleasurable world this would be. It would be for me if I could realize that what people I was told what people say about me or think about me is none of my business. But if I hear something like I'm a bit of a people pleaser. People will tell you that. I try my best to make everybody happy, and that doesn't always serve me well in this role, because I don't like that negative feedback. That gives me anxiety, and But that is some great advice. What people think about you is none of your business. We can't let the factors outside of our control affect the way we feel about ourselves, our self-esteem. We can't let it drive our anxiety. If we could remember that, that's great. That is so much easier said than done. But, if you struggle with some of those things, it's important that you find positive coping mechanisms. Now, I've tried yoga. That would also give me anxiety. I have horrific balance and flexibility. So I've moved on to other healthy ways to cope with my anxiety. But I applaud you for being a yoga instructor and expert. That's fantastic. So it's just...
I have the teacher training. I'm not an instructor right now, and I would never call myself a yoga expert. I'm very much a yoga novice, but I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, and plus, I would never want to wear the pants, Jason. I just don't think I could pull off that look.
No, I never did. I just watched.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
I'm glad that the yoga pants are a requirement. Okay, that eases some of my anxiety.
Yeah, I don't think I could pull out that look either. Speaking of things that are outside of our control, and in whatever side of the political spectrum anyone is on, the news can be very anxiety provoking. Have you seen that the news has much of an effect on young people, or do they basically ignore it?
Well, so the one thing to think about is with our kids, the way the news is delivered to them is 99% of the time it's via social media. So for one, depending on what platform, they're getting the information from, and two, is it factual? And I can say that about like even what we see and watch, if you're not, or depending on whether you're a CNN or Fox News person, not to get political, but like, yeah, so the kids do have this news, coming through their feeds and whatnot. The recent tragedy that just happened in Utah, our kids are very, very informed about that event, and they're talking about it in school and stuff. So I do think when you think about the division and hate that we see in our country and across the world right now, I think that does bring in a level of anxiety, because I think our kids want to feel safe. They deserve that. They deserve to feel safe. They deserve to feel safe at school, at church, at home. They deserve this level of safety, and being, again, exposed to what's on the internet and typically the social media, the TikToks and the Instagram. There's not a lot of positive that's coming through there. And absolutely that could increase the anxiety and the depression, because we're taking that safe. I just feel like that safe feeling that I always felt safe when I was a kid. Our parents let us run around, like no phones, it was come home when the light, the yard lights come on or the street lights come on, and go ride your bike wherever you want. And yeah, so that, I don't know, some of that level of youth and that freedom, some of those kids and parents are scared that what could happen to their kids now, and rightfully so, that you just never know anymore. And so, yeah, a long answer to your question, but the news and just all of the outside factors of the world, whether it's, hundreds of miles or states away, like all of that information, mostly negative, is right there for them to see. One click of a button.
If a parent hears the kid talking about the news and being and starting to stress out and going into what if, what can the parent do?
Again, it comes down to just that conversation, the delivery, and then the response to them, telling them that, making them feel comfortable, knowing that, where we live, maybe the rules, maybe the things that we've put in place that you've maybe argued about, these are the things we're doing as parents to keep you safe, to make you feel safe, to make you feel comfortable, to not feel so anxious in this crazy world that we're living in. Giving them reassurance and showing them that, and explaining that the reason that we have these boundaries or limitations, or, why you can't just do whatever you want. We put these things in place for your safety, and maybe it's not because we don't trust you, but we don't know what to expect, and we can only control what we control. And so the rules that we have and the requirements that we want you to do is how we do our best to keep you safe and feel safe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, it does.
I think the parent-child conversations, especially around the social media usage, and the safety of being a ethical user of social media. So you're posting positive content, you're making positive comments, you're only communicating with people you know and trust, and not becoming friends with somebody that is completely foreign because you don't know what's out there. And just explaining that, like, this is for your safety. I know I seem like maybe a helicopter mom or dad to you, but My job is to protect you and make you feel safe. This is how I can do it. Although, however unfair you might think it is, I'm doing this because I love you.
What hope do you see? What ways of hope do you see in all of this, if any?
I think there's always hope. I mean, everything we talked about was, anxiety driven by social media and the pressures of being the perfect 4.0 student and being the best of something. You know what? We have hope because at Platte-Geddes, we have fantastic kids. We have kids, and it goes back to us reminding them each and every day that they are so much more than a GPA. They're so much more than a stat line in the scorebooks after a game. They're so much more than, a filtered picture on the internet. There's hope. The kids are great. We have to just continue instilling those values in them that even though your talents vary from one student to the next, you are very talented. You are awesome. And don't ever forget that. And we have t-shirts with a Platte-Geddes Black Panther logo on them that say, "Be a better human." And we have a lot of great humans here. And I am proud of our school district, our public school districts, all schools. You know what? We're making great humans. And I think there's a lot of hope in our youth. And they they never cease to amaze me with some of the things that they do. And it's really celebrating those things, celebrating the positive, and then understanding that they're going to make mistakes and correcting those mistakes and reinforcing them in a manner that's teaching them right from wrong. It's not punitive in nature. It's, you know what, we're going to talk about this. We're going to figure out, how could have a better decision been made? What could we do going forward to make sure this doesn't happen again? So just there's so much hope in our youth, and we have. So there's, unfortunately we celebrate, and I don't mean celebrate, but we focus on the negative. What sells newspapers, what's popular on the news, 99% of it is not positive. We have to continue to focus on the positive and all the good things that are happening in our communities, in our schools, in our world. Let's celebrate those. Again, this probably sounds idealistic, but focus on the positive, because whether you're a kid or an adult, it's really hard. Like being a child is as hard as it's ever been. Adulting is really hard. 0 stars, do not recommend adulting, but we gotta do it, right? I mean, we had our day in the sun as a teenager, and just being that ray of hope, being that person of support, teaching our kids that value and that they're special in their own way, and allowing them to see that and showing them how great they are, and really pushing them to reach their full potential. We can do it. There is a lot of hope, and it starts with our kids, and never stopping that message that, your worth isn't shown in the number of clicks or likes on social media, right? Everybody brings something to the table. It looks different. If we all looked like Instagram models, how boring would this world be? And
if we all sounded like Instagram models.
Yeah. I have a lot of hope. We have, the youth are so great. It's just continuing to maintain those positive role models, and And we need positive adults that are modeling these things for them and teaching them to love who they are and to really focus on their strengths. And I mean, they have a big responsibility. They're going to take over. They're going to be cleaning up all of our messes as adults. So that's not going to be an easy task. But what a great group of kids to do that. So
gosh, I'm inspired as I hear you say that. Thank you. Last question. In my work, I talk about the power of doing our imperfect best. I'm curious, what does that mean to you? To do your imperfect best?
One, showing up every day, showing up for our kids, showing up for our teachers, whether it's a band concert, whether it's going to our colony schools to support those teachers and those kids, showing up every day with a positive attitude, maintaining perspective that no matter what is thrown at me, I can handle it. And just always maintaining that focus on why I'm here. Why are we here? We are here because we have the most important job in the world. And that is to teach and support and build amazing humans who will take care of us who are in nursing homes and cleaning up our mess as adults. So it's just showing up every day and doing my best for those kids. The parents have a tremendous amount of trust in myself as a superintendent, as our teachers and our principals and our staff, and not taking that for granted, knowing that this is a tremendous responsibility that's been put on us. And yeah, at the end of the day, going home and being able to hold your head high, knowing that, you know what, I did my best. I did my best today. And although that might not be seen as the best to some people, if we can say that we did the best for our kids, that is my imperfect best. We have our number one rule as an admin team is always act with our students and staff's best interests in mind. So there it is. And sometimes, you know what? It's not perceived that way because we have to make decisions that sometimes aren't popular. There's things that we have to do that the public, can't know about if it's pertaining to, students or staff members or something due to confidentiality. And so the perception maybe not always be that was what was best, or maybe they can't have all of the information, but it just goes back to, every single day, acting with our students and staff's best interests in mind.
Thank you so much for all you do, Superintendent and Principal Joel. Thanks so much for engaging in this much needed conversation. Please stay on. I'm going to end the show now, but please stay on the line. So a couple of things need to upload quickly. Okay.
No problem. I just want to say I wrote this down and I want to share the best message that I could share is with our students, with anybody listening. Again, going back to the cell phones and the comparison is a thief of joy, but and it goes back to doing your imperfect best. Perfection is an illusion and progress is real. So that is really like that.
Perfection is an illusion and progress is real, as Superintendent Joel says. And we'll leave you with that. Thanks so much for tuning in, for thinking about this conversation, for sharing it with friends, and most of all, thanks for being you. You are the best and only one of you in the world. Thanks for being you and doing what you can do.
Thank you, Jason. It's been a real pleasure.
You're welcome all. Thanks, Superintendent Principal Joel Bailey. Talk to you all next week. And smile.